So what's happening? We are not paying our debts, yet the city is crossed 14 cities. What's happening?
Yeah, so, Doc, you will also agree that even there are several factors. Of course, interest payment is one of them. And once you hold interest payment not moving and the other factors are moving, then you expect the cedi to still depreciate. So the fact that external servicing of debt, that's also to suggest that we are not servicing debt and that they are not Ghanaian domestic dollar-denominated facilities that we are servicing. We are still servicing that. But we are just saying that there's a moratorium on the servicing of external debt, which is what is in abeyance, if you like.
So we are not paying?
We are not paying.
Yes.
But the other factors still...
We've not been paying report, since November 2022.
Yeah, the report clearly states that corporate demand source. Now the question is that what are those corporations demanding the dollar for? One, for the importation of product. Two, for probably those that have their accounts domicile as repatriation of profit. For instance, if we are doing operation and we want to send our money back, they have to go and then change it to dollars and go on. So these factors still persist. And also because there was a watered down of the goal for oil program following the IMF engagement about the sustainability of it.
Watered down? What do you mean?
For instance, the government plan was to scale it up, increasing the volumes that are coming through the program. But the IMF also raised issues about the sustainability and the inflationary impact of such measure, because you are basically pumping also more cedi into the economy. So there were issues to, as it were, and you recall when the governor of Bank of Ghana said that they want to sustainable, if you like, face it off, that particular program. That even suspension had called for the vice president to call a meeting to re-examine how they can still go on with the program. So that temporary, if you like, watering down of that particular program, because we are not increasing volumes through the program, through the goal for oil. But
program. We still do it.
Yeah, government is still implementing that. So that actually also caused some problem, and the major driver of this one is the fuel market. Anytime you have the prices of fuel going up, you will also have to change more dollars in order to go and then buy the product. So that is actually accounting for. But if you also look at the movement of the cedi from 13 to 14 Ghana cedi, the movement is not quite unusual, because that has been the normal, and I've always insisted, I've always argued that until we get, and it's not even possible. I don't see how it's possible within the next 30 years that we have our cedi appreciating against the United States dollar, when it's a vehicle currency. I've always argued, when it is also the most dominant currency across the world, when Ghana cedi is the only cedi demanded in Ghana. I don't see that. But you always have to control the ties, so that the rate of depreciation is not going to be like we experienced the 54% at the height of the crisis. So for me, the explanatory factors to this is the fuel market. That's the major.
So if we were servicing our debt, where would the cedi have been?
Yeah, so if we were servicing our debt in the first place, I'm even sure if we were servicing our debt, the 54% reduction would have persisted. You get what I'm trying to say? Because that was the heat of the crisis, and that also made us to, for instance, put on hold. They have been debt standstill. But if we're still doing servicing of our debt, and without corresponding resources for us coming in, for instance, our trade position has not balanced. So if we're assuming that our trade position was going to be constant, and you are not raking in more revenue, you are just servicing with the currency. Our currency would have been a junk currency now. But we're just based on the assumption that nothing was going to be done by way of foreign exchange coming in, assuming that we'll not get any, receipt from our fuel and from our gold. But
no, we are still getting the receipts. Gold contributed about almost 8 billion, 2023. Yeah. Yes, we're still getting the receipts from fuel, from oil. We're still getting them
we still get them. But I'm saying that we are assuming that what we are getting would have been the same, whilst we are servicing debts.
Yes.
But my argument is that, yes, if that was the case, then we would have found our city in a very dire situation, Because mind you, the cedi is also stabilizing, because whenever you have our money coming to our reserves, for instance, the IMF fund, when it comes, it shows up our foreign exchange position
for 1 week.
I mean, for a relatively some time.
For a week.
Yeah, relatively some time. And because this issue of depreciation of currency is much more driven by expectations than the actual demand. Because, I mean, if I'm expecting the cedi to depreciate in the next coming months, I will go and change all my currency to utilize the United States dollar, hoping that I'll cut down my losses in the event it reduces the value. So that, I think that the debt standstill is helping. And from a purely technical point of view, I feel like, but for that program, we would have been in a very difficult situation with our currency. That admission has to be made. And that admission is also born out of the fact that, but for that, we wouldn't have gone for the debt standstill.
Are we clueless about this? Are we clueless? Because it appears like, first of all, the issue of the DDEP was inevitable. We were bankrupt. We couldn't pay our bills. And so the only option left, in fact, government said that was even not an option. If we want, I just don't want us to go back into those things. So it meant that every single strategy that we have spoken about and we have deployed failed. And therefore, we had no option than to go and take this. Now, irrespective of this, we have crossed 14. You know, we've crossed 14. Don't forget that whilst it might have helped us not to get to 20, there are also repercussions with the fact that we have that. I don't know if calling it a standoff is a correct expression with our external partners.
Yeah, it's a standoff.
You know, that also has its implications, you know. But it sounds as if we're clueless. And listening to you explaining, and I don't disagree with you, listening to you explain, it appears like there's nothing we can do.
No, I mean, there is something we can do, but what we can do are sometimes not immediate. And once you have an immediate crisis, you may have to look at remedial measures to use to actually stabilize a patient. When you are rushed to the emergency, you have to be stabilized before they can probably try to administer a medicine that can cure your sickness. So there are things we can do. And we all agree that those things, until they are done, until we increase the real sector.
So why haven't we done that?
We are doing that, but it didn't take one nation, a day, a year, 2 years to do those things. It's just that for me, I feel like we are not consistent with our measures as a country, not just the government, but as a country, we are not consistent with our measures. And we don't have a consistent policy direction. For instance, 1D1F is a policy. Have we been able to make sure in the unlikely event there's a policy change, such a policy is going to continue? Okay, these are the things that will help us build on foundation upon foundation to get the structure right. But once we don't do that,
we must first be convinced that the 1D, 1F policy is not a slogan, but is indeed a policy which is rooted on firm grounds and which has clear objectives, and that those objectives are being met. So I have asked this question 1 million times here, that if it is about import substitution, what is the result as we speak? If it is about job creation, what is the result? So you bring in policies, there's an objective behind introducing a policy. As we speak today, nobody is speaking to the real issues.
Yeah, I agree with the fact that as a policy, maybe there must be consistent assessment and routine update of the people of Ghana on the impact of such policy. That will get us all the necessary buy-in from every Ghanaian. But where I see from even a cursory look, going to the United States and finding the products of our 1D, 1F on the shelves in the United States market, I feel like there is some exportation. And I also, if I juxtapose this with the fact that at a point you have consistent trade surpluses, or what do you call it, balances, current account, but I mean positives, you can also reasonably attribute some of these things to that. But it's not the only factor.
Today I don't want to engage in an intellectual or whatever. I have a terrible headache. But you see, you know, I always speak about form over substance. Yeah. Even without 1D, 1F, you could find Ghanaian products everywhere. Yes. My issue is that if we even speak about trade surplus, if you drill down the data, you find out that it's on the back of oil and gold. You would see that. So you can clearly tell the contribution. If even they say industry, you can drill down to the subsectors in the industry and find out whether indeed it is 1D, 1F. So for example, if it's import substitution, what has been the contribution? If it is even food inflation, even if for internal consumption, food inflation, how has it contributed? If it is about jobs, how has it contributed? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean,
so that's where I
perfectly agree with you. But I'm saying that, you see, we can go to the numbers and discuss. And once you have a chunk percentage of your foreign surpluses attributed to gold, that may diminish the role, say, exportation of fruit juice would have played. But take away the fruit juice component, you realize that maybe it will have reduced by 0.1%.
So do you know how I want to look at it? I don't even want to look at the consolidated figure. If, for example, and I've used this example many times, if we were importing, let's say, 50 tons, or let's say 50,000 liters of fruit juice every year, I don't want to use values for now.
Yeah.
Because pricing can happen. So if we're doing, like, say, 50,000 or 500,000 liters a year, and then as a result of 1D, 1F, it has reduced to, let's say, 40,000. Then you can say that maybe in the 5 years or the 6 years, this is what has happened, and therefore there's a need to even ramp up. So we are demonstrating that we have the capacity, we can ramp up and thereby save ourselves X amount of money. You see? But that's not what is happening. The fact that there is some juice which is being sold somewhere and it's as a result of 1D, 1F, or there is some juice that we saw at Lidl, which is as a result of a 1D, 1F, is not a basis to say that. Do you understand what I'm saying?
No, I think that it is not sufficient basis to say that 1D, 1F is a success. But we cannot say it is not one of the bases of saying that the program may be successful or may have some successes. Because we need to be candid with the issues here. We have sufficiency of that particular metric. It's not, I agree with you, it's not. But to say that it is not necessarily a measure is also problematic. You talk about jobs. The Minister for Trade comes to tell us that over 160,000 jobs were created consequent to that. People will raise, is it really true? Where are those people? Those questions will be asked. But for me, it's not in those details. In those details, we'll have some settled view on whether we should make it a national policy or not. But I think that there are some few successes chalked that we must look at and see whether or not we can build on that. I agree that once the issue becomes political question, it's difficult for my brother or any person in the NDC to then admit that this policy is helping. But if we delink the politics from it and we try to look at it from that particular analytical perspective, try to assess this impact measurable, then people can say, okay, it has reduced importation by 1%. If we scale it in the subsequent, maybe it will reduce it by 5%. And once we have that consistent policy, we can stem this issue about inflation. So it is not just this measure. All measures about government, they mention of Atuabo all the time. And last time when I commended the Mahama about this liberation exercise, it became news. But when you have a power plant set up to address power situation, that is at the heart of your economy. That is at the heart of the productive sector of your economy. That in itself is a foundation which you use to have a stable currency. But once you still have remnants of power outages ongoing and all, you are basically eating into any reserves you are having because you are paying, also this agreement, you are paying all the money to foreigners. So these are the foundational issues that I think that we all need to address in order to get firm hold of the currency. And a more important issue is about public policy. once we are exposed, when we are borrowing from outside, you will always be exposed. Hikes in Federal Reserve rate will have repercussion on your economy. But if all monies in this country were deposited, there were this culture of savings. Savings creates wealth. Government borrows from this domestic market, use it to undertake infrastructure development, setting the foundation right. I'm not sure we'll be so much exposed from the threat coming from payment or servicing of debt. So all these things are issues that I think that we need to build on. It doesn't take a day. It doesn't take a year. It doesn't take one government. And now even Mr. John Dramani Mahama once said that you cannot build a country in 4 years. Okay, that somehow is right, because looking at the time horizon and even look at medium-term development plans goes beyond four years. Now talk about even long-term development plans. It goes even beyond the tenure, the 8-year mandate that will be given a president. But until we have that attitudinal and institutional structure framework be in place, detached from the politics, this currency issue will come back if we are still alive in 50 years to be discussing this same matter.